For you now to say that stem cells could be replacing your pharmaceutical drugs that you've been taking for the last 10 years, that is mind-blowing and incredible.
I have seen after injection a few weeks later, some patients started to be able to move their fingers and actually being able to pick up the spoons and eat by themselves, slowly walking with rehabilitation by cane.
Dr. Midori is a pioneering medical doctor and the founder and director of Regenerative Clinic in Tokyo, where she seamlessly blends the timeless art of Japanese preventive medicine with the most advanced stem cell therapies and cutting-edge longevity science. With over 10,000 patients under her expert care, including global CEOs, celebrities, and high-performance leaders, she has truly earned her place as a leading authority on reversing the biological clock.
And they just hear the hype and they're like, I want to go and try these stem cells.
Yeah, and if not cultivating in a hygienic environment, it could cause inflammation or infection. That could be life-threatening.
So if doctors are not giving you the right information and you're injecting that back into your body and it's doing nothing from you, aren't you going to be like frustrated about that?
Yes.
Doctors must test inflammation first before they're able to go extract and then repopulate in the body. Focusing on the real science and real data is the other.
Right.
And that's what people should go for instead of just the hype. And if these conversations aren't had, they will die eventually because they're using the wrong thing. Dr. Midori, what an absolute pleasure to have you on the Be That Life experience. Welcome.
Thank you, Mary, for having me. And I know that you're very, very busy and traveling around the world. I'm so honored to actually have an interview with you today.
So today our conversation is going to be around a topic that is trending right now. Let's say it's trending, but also controversial. But this conversation is going to be a really important one, a fascinating, interesting, and an important one, because today we're really going to bust some myths out there on what it takes when it comes to the world of stem cells. Now, the stem cell space is kind of crazy, right? Because there's one aspect to it, a world where it's like hyping and trending and everyone wants to try stem cells. What is this new technology? What is this new breakthrough? And then the other side of it, where we have actually labs like yours, real doctors and scientists who really back it from a clinical perspective here in Japan. So today I want to just ask you, what got you into the field of stem cells, and, you know, where do you think the stem cell practice is going to?
Yeah. So I think it all started in 2008 when I was doing my last year of medical school at Peking University. And then I decided to go to Harvard Medical School, Massachusetts General Hospital to do some training. And then there I encountered some patient who suffered spinal cord injuries, and basically their hands and legs were paralyzed and they couldn't even walk or pick up the spoon to eat by themselves. And then they were treating a clinical, they're conducting a clinical trial with stem cell derived from bone marrow to treat these patients. And I have seen after injection a few weeks later, some patients started to be able to move their fingers and actually being able to pick up the spoons and eat by themselves, slowly walking with rehabilitation by cane. So the results were, amazing and phenomenal. So that's how I first got very interested in regenerative medicine, because before that I had no idea about stem cell. And then another breakthrough was in 2018 when the Japanese Ministry of Health first admitted the stem cell treatment for spinal cord injured patients. And then I saw the result of the clinical trial.
But this was also in the U.S.?
No, in Japan.
This was in Japan?
Yeah, the first one approved in Japan. And so because it was done in Japan, I felt much closer to realization, right? And then actually 12 patients of the 13 patients show some improvement in their impairment scales.
Incredible.
Yeah. So
and
then,
this was something that's never happened before.
Right. Yeah. So, and then I decided, okay, now maybe we can really put this technology into the practice, as you say. And then I started preparing to open my own clinic.
Do you come from a family of doctors?
Yes, actually, my father is a doctor oncologist who does immunotherapy for more than 20 years.
Right.
And my brother is an oncologist, hematologist. So
So it's like a line of family, like you really understand cancer because you were in that space for so long. I mean, your father has been in that space for so long. So you've been
Right.
exposed to a lot of his clinical trials and studies and patients. You've been hearing so much about it.
Right.
And because, cancer is also a disease that's quite close to my heart in a sense. I lost my father to cancer. And
I'm
he was
sorry
quite
to hear
young
that.
when he died of cancer. He was only 59 and I was in my early 20s.
Oh.
So really this topic, and because, still till today, so many different types of cancers, and we haven't really established a cure for it in so
Yeah.
many ways. It's a very interesting topic for me.
Right. And I have a very good news for you. For those whose family died because of cancer, my father actually wrote a book called Don't Worry, Cancer is Not Caused by Genetic Factors.
Yeah.
It's caused by lifestyles.
Totally.
10 times more. And this has evidence of identical twin studies who has exactly same DNA, but one got cancer, the other didn't, because of the difference in the lifestyle.
Yeah, so based on epigenetics now,
Right,
right? They've
right.
completely changed that.
Exactly.
So just for our listeners to give a little bit of a context, because now after what you just said, people are like very curious. So let's just, go back a little bit, take a step back and just explain what stem cells actually are.
Right. So many people ask this question.
Yeah.
And I think many times it's misunderstood or misused. And some people don't even understand the difference between stem cell and exosomes,
Yeah,
probably.
that's true.
Okay, so stem cell, probably the easiest way to understand is if I give you some points of characteristics of stem cell. The first characteristics of stem cell is its differentiation function, which means differentiation function means the stem cell can change themselves to make different kind of cells in our body. In our body, we have skin cell for skin, brain cell for brain, liver for liver cell, okay. And they have different functions. But once they become each somatic cell, they can no longer change to differentiate to make other type of cell,
Okay.
correct? But the stem cell has these differentiating functions,
Because they can convert.
right, to different cells. So that's number one. So it's like a seed of the cell, except placenta.
Okay.
The second characteristic of stem cell is it's able to multiplicate by themselves. So just imagine if the stem cell exists just one cell in your body and you got some kind of injured somewhere and then you need stem cell to create new cells to cure that. You no longer have stem cell anymore in your body to cure for the next time. So that's why stem cell has the ability to replicate themselves, to store and prepare for the future use. And the third characteristics of stem cell is called homing effect. It comes from the English word home, go home. So the stem cell actually have the ability to catch the signals of inflammation produced by damaged cell or tissues. That's why the stem cell we often inject by IV, but they're able to detect where the body is needed, and then they will just go there and concentrate on repairment on that spot.
Okay, incredible explanation. And I feel like, stem cells in general has so many benefits when it's used the right way, though.
Yes.
Right? And it's fascinating to me because Japan has been a pioneer
Yes.
in stem cells.
Yes.
And they've been a pioneer in stem cells since Yamanaka
Yes.
discovered the IPCs.
Yes.
And since then, you have been rigorous in terms of how it's regulated in the country. So there's been a lot of tests, clinical trials. Not everyone can just use stem cells sporadically. There's definitely certain restrictions and constraints, which means that that if you're getting stem cells done by clinics like yours, they've gone through tons of testings and rigorous ways of really trying to discover the right kinds versus the wrong kinds. So it means that when you come to Japan and try to use stem cells, you know that you can come in here with confidence. Am I right?
Correct.
So how long has your clinic been working in the stem cell space?
So we have been working for 7 years now. I think the characteristics of our clinic is that we not only have the clinic, but we actually do have the laboratory right beside the clinic,
Yes.
which is very active. We have a partnership officially with different kind of Japanese university hospitals to, update our technology and know-hows. And unique thing about us is that the cutting edge technology which gained in the laboratory can be applied to clinical practice, but at the same time, our clinical experience can be reflected to our laboratory for further research.
What do you think now that the world is obviously, there's so many different countries, not so many in terms of 20s, 30s, but I just say like below 10 countries in the world who are really aggressively using stem cells as a treatment, right? Because again, not many governments and jurisdictions are agreeing to use stem cells as a treatment. Still a lot of regulatory issues around that. But the countries that are using it, what makes Japan different from how people are using it in Europe or in the Western countries?
So Japan, as you know, has probably one of the most strict regulation against regenerative medicine treatment.
Yeah.
And since 2012, when Professor Yamanaka won the Nobel Prize, the Japanese government really got into promoting the whole regenerative medicine treatment and making Japan as one of the leading country for this area. So we have a lot of clinical trials going on, a lot of government sponsorship going on, and so on. And doctors and clinics are opening, every day as we speak in this area.
You started initially, you said in aesthetics, right? And that's how you specialize
Yes.
in the aesthetic space.
Yes.
And then you moved and you kind of combined that with stem cells because, like, for example, we were talking earlier and I was telling you that I did some stem cells on my face. And when you were focused on the aesthetics element to it from anti-aging perspective, because beauty is a massive industry, and most women
Yes.
will come and do everything they can to just look youthful.
Right.
And I guess it's a plus for Asians because you just don't age. We don't age, and we still look much younger even in our 40s and 50s, right?
Yeah.
But it's still like beauty is still a massive industry, and people will spend thousands and thousands of dollars to retain the youthful look. So of course in aesthetics, we're always trying to find a way to be able to make women look beautiful, and even men who are maybe celebrities or front facing in TV and so on, to always look incredible, right?
Yeah.
When did you discover like stem cells is a great point to add to aesthetics?
When did I discover? So when I was working as a plastic surgeon,
Okay.
at the same time I was doing a research of stem cell, preparing myself to open the stem cell clinic.
So how long? This was like 7 years ago.
A little bit more, like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And, I don't want to sound too cocky, but what I say is when I do my job, I do it perfectly.
Of course, yeah.
And-
we want perfect doctors
Right.
because this is your face and
is
your
something
body.
everybody can
Yeah.
see and notice the result.
You know how many times I've heard like a really bad nose job?
Yes.
A lot. I've had friends that done 3-4 times a
Right.
nose job because they've either removed the bridge completely
Yes.
and completely have nothing else to work on.
Oh my
So
God.
I totally understand what you say.
Yes.
That's the reason why I've never really done anything to my face from a surgical perspective.
Yes.
Because I get so worried about if you make an error once, it's so hard to fix that.
Right. Yeah, even just a simple injection, what I do is not just calculate the angle, the location, the depth, the speed, amount. Everything is calculated individually to perfectly matches to the individual faces and the best outcome.
Yeah. Do you do facelifts as well?
Yes.
Have you discovered, like, recently there've been a lot of, trending topics now on this deep plane facelift? You've heard about it? A lot of new celebrities now, like the Kardashians and
Yes.
Lindsay Lohan, and
yes.
they're talking about the way that a deep plane facelift is really like a work of art. Is this true?
Yes, it's true.
It's true.
Because it's really depends on the doctor's taste, I would say, and the technique as well. So yes, it's like an art.
And how it's done. And why is a deep plane facelift so natural? Like, how is it done that it just looks so beautiful? Do they also kind of include stem cells in that? Or is it like a pure facelift without stem cells?
I'm not sure because each doctor uses
Yeah.
different
What do you do?
techniques. But when I do like lifting, I use exosomes
Okay.
or sometimes stem cell because it helps a patient to recover faster, and the healing process is faster.
So there's a topic on salmon exosomes, right?
Right.
And some are saying that it doesn't actually work, and while others are saying that it actually works. So does it work?
Yeah, I wanted to show you this table.
Yes,
Yeah,
please do
because
so.
there are a lot of misunderstanding about regenerative medicine.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this up on the screen for our listeners.
Yeah, so one of them is actually about the exosome. So many people think exosome is same as stem cell, as I explained to you earlier. But what it is actually is just an empty envelope. So it's a very, very tiny vesicles. It's about 30 to 150 nanometer in diameter, and it's produced by almost any type of cells.
Okay.
And its function is to embrace important proteins such as cytokines or RNAs and then deliver, transport to where it's necessary. So it plays an important role for the cell and cell communication.
Okay, so it's like a transportation tool.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a box.
Got it.
Okay, so when somebody tell you we have a lot of exosome, doesn't mean anything. Okay, you have a lot of empty box.
Yeah.
But what's really important is what's inside
inside
the
the
box, which is cytokines.
Okay.
Okay, so we outsource the composition of spironolactone.
No, please explain that.
Spironolactone is another name for exosome, probably.
Okay.
It's a liquid produced by stem cell when they're being cultivated. So it contains a rich amount of cytokines, and the cytokines play the major role for the potency or efficacy of the stem cell.
Okay.
Okay? So we compare the composition of spironolactone from different source of stem cell to see. Because another thing people misunderstand is, including myself a few years ago, people think younger the stem cell is better. But I just found out recently that may not be necessarily the case.
What? I read the same thing and I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we conducted this analysis done by third party, we found that was compared to our spironolactone, which was derived from fat tissue collected from 20-year-old female, to umbilical cord derived stem cell, we found that most of the cytokines were better in our spironolactone than umbilical cord.
What?
Yes.
Why? How?
So, yeah. So far, our conclusion is the efficacy or the quality of the stem cell or the spironolactone does not depend on the age or the source even. It's how you cultivate it.
Right. So it's really not about based on like you need to get it firstly from umbilical cords.
No.
It's about cultivation.
Yes.
Just
So that was
wild.
also an eye-opening for me as well.
Right. And how long does the cultivation need to happen?
For the stem cell, it takes about 6 weeks.
But then it could also be cultivated wrongly.
Exactly.
So what's the opposite of right? What would they do wrong?
Some clinics or laboratory doesn't maintain their hygienic environment and it cause contamination, or if you use different kind of enzymes or antibiotics during the process, or it doesn't grow as fast or as well, and we use different techniques obviously to grow in good quality. So this is the know-how of our laboratory.
Yeah. So hygiene is super important.
Right.
And also like how long you cultivate it. Maybe even some clinics don't cultivate it long enough. And then
Yes.
they inject it into the body.
Yes.
And it actually does more harm than good.
Yeah.
But and then how can you be sure that they're cultivating it long enough? You know, it's just
Yes.
based on trust.
Yes. I see some people, like some clinic, they say it's a stem cell injection, but they harvest and they can inject on the same day or in 2 weeks. And I think that's impossible to cultivate. So they're probably injecting something else.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And like people are so uninformed.
Yes.
And they just hear the hype and they're
Yeah.
like, I want to go and try these stem cells.
Yeah.
Do you say that that's the same for the face as well as for the body?
Yes.
And so do you feel that it poses a lot of risk?
Yes.
That if you use it for the face as well, what are the risks if you use it that hasn't been cultivated long enough or not in a proper hygienic environment that could go wrong in the face?
If not cultivated long enough, you don't have a cell to start with.
So
nothing.
basically you
You're just
wasted
putting
all
a
of
water.
that money
yeah,
and
probably.
nothing happened.
Yeah, and if not cultivated in a hygienic environment, it could cause inflammation or infection.
Yeah. So
That
and
could be life-threatening.
And the inflammation could be external or internal.
Both.
So what would an inflammation cause? Would you have like a breakout? Would it be eczema? What would they be more likely to see? You know, it's good to understand because there are people that probably done stem cells and saw a reaction and then went back to the doctor and the doctor was like, there's nothing wrong. It's just inflammation and it will go down.
Yeah.
Because I hear these kind of topics happening all the
I
time,
see.
by the way.
Yeah.
And, you know, doctors like to always save themselves and not really the patient.
Yes.
You know, and
Right.
they don't want to look bad.
Yeah.
So they will just say, you can go home now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just inflammation, put a little bit of ice and take some antibiotics. And in a couple of days or a week, it will get better.
Right.
But in reality, they didn't do the right job the first time. It causes the inflammation. Antibiotics only covers the symptom and not the root cause of the problem. It might have complications later on.
Exactly.
So really, it's always good to know what could be the flare-ups.
Sure. So I always tell the patient the difference between the inflammation, which is just short period of reaction, right, for the treatment, or infection, which you're growing some kind of bacteria inside your body, is the bad sign is pain. And if it's getting worse every day, swelling, it's getting worse every day. Do you have high fever? You have redness? These are a very bad sign of infection, possibility of infection. Then it never happened in my clinic, but if this happened, I want my patient to come back to me as soon as possible. Yeah, the patient needs immediate treatment.
And what's a treatment for something like that? Like how do you
So we
help
need
them?
antibiotics for this.
So you'll need so basically antibiotics to heal the infection.
Yes.
And then can they heal though? Or
Well, it depends on the severeness of the. I mean, when you're doing the IV, you're putting a liquid into your blood vessel, and it could go all over your body. It's more even dangerous than doing the facial, which is superficial.
yeah, because facial is just superficial, right?
Right.
And the ones that going like in your spine or various different parts of your body,
Yeah, it could be life-threatening.
it's life-threatening.
Yes.
And have you, not in your clinic, but have you heard of some similar cases where this has happened?
A lot, to be honest.
yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, I've heard it a lot myself too.
Yes.
And it's good that we're kind of creating this awareness and talking about it because a lot of the times, a lot of hospitals or like clinics that are doing this are trying to hide that information.
Right.
Because they don't want to look bad, right?
Right.
And they don't want to, but it's to send this information out because they don't want also to stop using stem cells or to ruin their practice.
Right.
But this conversation that we're having now has to be an honest one because for anyone that wants to dabble into the world of stem cells
Yeah.
and try it, or their doctors are prescribing them stem cells,
Yes.
or they are in a life-threatening disease
Yes.
or situation
Yes, yes.
that they want to use stem cells,
Right.
these open conversations will give them a more practical and responsible way on choosing the kind of doctor that they need to choose.
Yes.
And if these conversations aren't had, they will die
Yeah.
eventually because they're using the wrong things, right?
Exactly.
So what are some of the most important things someone either in a life-threatening position, like they have cancer, they have an injury, they have like spinal issues, they want an organ regeneration. What are the first things they need to first understand? Number one, come to Japan, maybe. And number two, the kind of doctor that they need to, maybe they can't come to Japan, or the kind of doctor they need to first figure out, maybe licenses, registrations they need to look at, the kind of stem cells they need to understand before they even decide that this is the therapy they want to go for.
Typically, I usually give consultation online or offline, online for most overseas patients, for at least 1 hour to understand, what it is that they're looking for from the stem cell treatment. Is it some kind of anti-aging maintenance, or they have some particular issues like chronic pain or inflammation, degeneration of their body? And then I will tell them straight away, okay, we can, or there is a possibility, or we cannot.
Okay, so you're very honest.
Yes. I think honesty and transparency is very important.
Yeah.
And even if I tell them that the possibility of improvement is very, very, very low, but some people still want to try and for that.
Yeah.
Then,
when you're desperate,
right,
and you're in a state of you're worried, you don't know if you're going to be living tomorrow, you're going to want to try everything.
right.
Pause with me for a moment and imagine if your home could actually heal you. What if your home could nourish you just like a supplement can? At AWA, every material, molecule, and vibration is selected to heal. Redox water, clean air, crystal energy, and biophilic design, all working together to reset your biology. You don't just live in AWA, you regenerate there. This is what it feels like to step inside a living supplement. Now let's go back to the episode and explore more ways to return to your natural state.
Right.
So in this case, of course, I accept if the patient agree and understand the risk, which means there may not be any changes after the treatment. Yeah. But I always tell them straight in their face.
Okay, so they've established that, they've had the call, they feel like the call is not enough.
Right.
What else do they need to know?
So I asked them to do the simple blood test for me to understand what kind of body condition they have. So this will give me more, of an understanding. And from there, I will make a final decision of what treatment they should be receiving from what their requirements are, and then whether they can proceed with the treatment.
Do you explain the kind of stem cells that you're going to be either using or?
Yes, of course.
So, and how does the explanation happen? Like, what's the kind of conversation that goes on? Is it, for example, somebody comes to you now with a cancer diagnosis, right? And you use like immunotherapy,
yes,
a particular type, but then you're also using stem cells.
No.
Not in this case. So for elaborate on this.
Yeah, so for cancer patient, we do not recommend stem cell.
Okay.
Because there's a risk of formation of cancer.
Got it.
Okay.
But are some doctors using stem cells?
I'm not sure, but we never do.
Okay, good.
So instead of stem cell treatment, we can recommend natural killers treatment, which is enhancement of immune system.
Okay, can you explain that, please?
Yeah. So natural killer cell is one type of immunocells, and I always describe as sniper because they work alone, individual, and when they find the cancerous cells, they kind of shoot like a bullet to kill the cancer. So in our immunotherapy, what we do is we draw our patient blood, about 20 cc, and then we cultivate, meaning increase the number of natural killer cells. And by doing that, we can enhance the immune power. And then once we're ready, we will inject back by IV.
Okay. And how long before they feel anything? Do they feel anything, or is it just their immune system is enhanced?
So most of the patients who come to us are at the very end stage 4 cancer.
Oh.
Yes, but some of them feel that they have more energy. They just feel better after the treatment,
But
and
does
some
it
they
help?
don't have. I would say about 30%. Yes.
But it doesn't cure.
Yes. So what we are looking for is somebody whose cancer is not as active, but they are afraid of reoccurrence.
Oh, okay.
So that's the
it's
best
like
moment.
in remission.
Right.
So someone's in remission, they need to come and do these like once every 3 months, or what is it?
Once in 6 months is okay.
So twice a year basically.
Yeah.
They need to come and do this.
Yeah.
Just to kind of kill all the remaining
Yes.
cancer cells.
Yes.
Because all of us have cancer cells in the body,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
We activate it based on lifestyle.
Yes.
And it's not a genetic predisposition.
No.
Although for the longest time we've been told it's a genetic
Right.
predisposition.
Right.
We've now learned that it's actually not a predisposition. It's more how you live your life.
Exactly.
And we're also now living in a world where it makes it very difficult to stay healthy because everywhere we go now is processed foods everywhere. Everything is in plastic.
Yes,
We're no
yes.
longer drinking from glass bottles. We're no longer eating like whole foods. Every single like convenience store that I go to, the first thing when I go in there and walk, it's like a packaged food in plastic.
Right.
Right? And it's stuff that is filled with sugar and gluten. Can we, for example, cultivate our own stem cells in the body based on lifestyle? Or is it always that we just need to do it from an external source?
Right. So this is a very good question, which I have my personal opinion, but I don't have a scientific data because nobody have ever done the study yet. But
Please do the study.
Yeah, right. We should probably do it.
Yeah.
So as you know, the chronic inflammation is really bad for the quality of the stem cell. It affects and impairs the survival of the stem cell. It deteriorates the differentiation function of the stem cell, and also, like you said, the gut dysbiosis disrupts immune regulation and metabolic balance, and reducing the stem cell function. And the epigenetic noise, as you know, lower the stem cell potency and regenerative capacity through random gene expression changes. So the combination of these three factors can substantially reduce the efficacy of the stem cell therapies.
Right. And people don't really realize that though.
Right.
So if you are in a body that's inflamed and you try to inject stem cells, are you trying to say that it wouldn't really work as well?
Yes.
So the body needs to be prepared before
Yes.
they even take stem cells, and are doctors telling people that? Or are we just injecting stem cells?
So usually what I do is, because in Japan we only allowed to do autologous stem cell, which means we do need to take patients' own fat
Okay.
to make stem cell.
Okay.
So when the patient visit my clinic for the first time, they're just harvesting the stem cell.
Okay.
So usually I give them the exosome, the spironolactone, to reduce inflammation and improve the gut biosis during the process of 6 weeks of cultivation of stem
Okay, so
cell.
you're testing inflammation first, right? So
Right.
when a patient comes to you
Yeah.
and they want to do a treatment,
Yeah.
your first line of protocol is you're testing for inflammation.
Yes.
Because stem cells in general will not work in a body that's inflamed.
Exactly.
Right? So
Right.
you need to make sure that your body is in a great environment
Right.
for the stem cells to
Yeah.
cultivate in a way that will add benefit to the human body.
Right. So in order to do that, I first give them the IV of spironolactone, which has an anti-inflammatory function.
Yeah. And that you do for like 6 weeks.
No, I just do once.
So you do that for one time.
Yeah.
And within that one time, you test again to understand if there's inflammation in the body.
Yes, yes.
If it's a great environment to be able to cultivate new stem cells coming in, then it makes sense to continue with the
Exactly.
process.
Yes.
But if a doctor never asks you that question, you know it's already a red flag. Doctors must test inflammation first before they're able to go extract and then repopulate in the body. Correct?
Yes. I mean, you're not producing a risk by putting a lower potency of stem cell, but it doesn't probably work as well as it should be.
Yeah, because stem cells at the moment is not a cheap
Exactly.
treatment.
Yes.
So if you're going to be spending so
Right.
much money,
Yeah, you
you
want to
might
be
as well make sure that it's working.
Yes, exactly.
You know, it isn't just a regular checkup that you're going for and spending like $200. These are
Right.
tens and thousands of dollars
Yes.
that you could be investing in a stem cells treatment.
Right.
So if doctors are not giving you the right information and you're injecting that back into your body
Yeah.
and it's doing nothing from you, aren't you going to be like frustrated about that?
Yes.
So it's important that people understand it from that perspective, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I'm really just curious about the IPS, and this topic is a really important one because obviously Japan has been pioneering in this for such a long time,
Right.
And can you just explain it to our listeners right now?
Yeah.
What's an IPS?
Yes.
How does that work in the body? How are stem cells used in terms of treating certain types of disorders?
Sure. So IPS, as you know, it stands for induced pluripotent stem cell. So it falls under the category of stem cell because it has a differentiation function. And in our body, there are different kind of cells. So the first one is the fertilized egg. And the fertilized egg differentiation function is totipotent, which means this cell can make any and all type of cells in our body, 100%. That's what toti means in Latin. And the iPS cells and ES cells fall under pluripotent function, which means it can change to any type of cell in our body except placenta. So it's almost complete, but not complete.
Not like the first one.
Right. Okay. And whereas, skin has skin cell, liver has liver cell, these are called somatic cells, and they're already differentiated, meaning their destiny is already determined. Okay, you are going to be a skin cell in the future. You're going to be a brain cell in the future. Once this destiny is determined, you cannot change. You cannot change a skin cell into a brain cell once it becomes skin, correct? Yeah. So that means these cells don't have differentiation function. Okay?
Okay.
And why IPS is so amazing and how we can use it. Let's say we have a diabetic patient who has problem with pancreas producing insulin, right? Okay, the beta cell. We want to make a beta cell, but we only have the somatic cells, which cannot differentiate anymore. So there's a gap in between the two cells. Yeah. That's why the creation of iPS cells, which can differentiate to make the pancreatic cell, is very important from the skin cell.
Right.
Okay.
So how does that procedure work?
So you take a skin cell, and then you do the genetic modify, the CRISPR knife and all these things. So the Yamanaka factor, the famous 4 DNA genes, they're going to induce to the cell. So it's like turning on switch and off switch.
Okay.
So when the fertilized egg cells are created, basically all the switch are turned on.
Okay.
That's why it can become any type of cells. But one step differentiated, it's like some switch are turned off. So you have lost possibility to become these cells. You understand, kind of?
Yes.
Okay, so it's all the genetic editing is like turning off and on switches of the cell destination.
Right. So you have the control over that.
Right, and usually once it's turned off, we cannot turn on back.
Right.
But using the regenerative medicine technology such as IPS, you can.
Got it.
Okay, but the problem with IPS is because it's such a complicated process, right? DNA modification is very, very complicated, takes long time, costs a lot of money, and a lot of time, and even has a risk of forming tumors, as you know.
Correct. Yeah.
That's why it's not very big in clinical practice.
Right. So do you use it in your clinic?
Actually, we have sent our researchers to the university hospital research center to acquire the know-how and technology to establish the IPS. So yes, we can, but we are not using it because we found something better.
What's the something better?
So this technology is called direct reprogramming that I'm really, really focusing on right now.
Direct reprogramming.
Yes.
Okay, so can we just elaborate a little bit on
Yes,
what's a direct
yes,
reprogramming?
Yes. I'm sure many people never heard about this word before because
I
it's
haven't.
not big. Yes. The idea is very similar. So let's say we have a skin cell, okay, and we want to make the beta cell to produce insulin. Remember, the iPS cell was to create from skin cell to iPS cell and then iPS cell to beta cell. But the direct reprogramming technology, you can take the skin cell and without going through iPS cell, make directly the beta cells. That's why it's called direct reprogramming.
How is that
Yes.
done?
Yes. So the professor that I'm working with at the Japanese university have found this special factor called K factor. Basically, what it does is lowering the wall of hurdles from becoming A cell to the targeted B cells. That's why the cell can easily become the target cells.
Wow.
Much more efficiently, faster, cheaper, and safe.
How long has that been in testing?
Actually, the direct reprogramming technology has been out there for years. I think it started something like 1987.
Okay.
Yes, and many scientists were trying to make the targeted cells by using this technology, but the problem was the conversion rate. So they could only make the target cell up to like 5% or maybe at the best 30%. So it wasn't efficient enough to apply to the clinical practice.
Okay.
But with the discovery of this Professor K factor, it drastically improved
By
that
how many percent?
80%
Wow.
and much faster.
That's
So
incredible.
yes, so we are now really focusing on elaborating this technology, and hopefully in the near future we can use this technology for anti-aging, people who want to lose weight or prevent Alzheimer, and treating diabetes. And
Wait,
so
how does
on.
that work in weight loss? You got me curious now. Because that's like one of the
Yeah,
hottest topics
right.
ever in the world.
Right.
Weight loss.
Yeah.
So how does this improve weight loss?
Yeah, so very simple. There are different types of fat cells, as you know, okay? The one white adipose cell is the one to store fat, store calorie. On the other hand, the brown adipose tissue is the one to burn calorie. So using the direct reprogramming technology, we can make white fat to the brown fat so that it burns calorie more.
Wow.
It's a very simple theory.
There's like no side effects, nothing?
So far, yes, but we are doing the research now. We have done the animal studies, so now we want to move on to the clinical trials.
How long do you think before this technology will be available?
Hopefully within a few years. We
Yeah, a
would
couple
like
of
to-
years more. And then we no longer need like a GLP-1 kind of
Right.
ways to be using.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
and so that is it will still be using your skin cells to be able to
yes,
do the
we
same,
can.
but in a more direct way than IPS.
Yes.
Right?
So it's easier, faster, cheaper.
And do you think that you see results right away, or does it take time?
Oh, yes.
Because with stem cells, it's like instant gratification, almost.
So we have so far done studies for the diabetic patient because especially type 1 diabetes, because there are a lot of people who suffer from that.
Yes,
and we
exactly.
do see that from the beta cell we created, there is some insulin being produced.
Okay, and can you help a type 1 diabetic get off their meds
Yes.
based on stem cells?
Yes.
Wow.
In the future.
That's
I think
incredible.
it's possible. Yes.
Yeah, but like how many treatments would they need to be doing to be able to get off their meds? You know, a lot of the issues currently with people with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, is there's a lot of fear mongering. Doctors like to scare their patients
Right.
in a sense like if you get off your meds, something terrible is going to happen to you. So automatically, because patients have such incredible trust with their doctors and they've been on these, pharmaceutical drugs for decades. Some are even like I have a friend who has a daughter who has been taking insulin shots since she was 15. She's been diagnosed diabetic since her teens. And you know how difficult that is for parents undergoing that at such a young, for their children at such a young age. It's terrible, right?
Right.
And then having to then completely transform your life and live based on like taking insulin shots always. It's not ideal. Nobody wants to do that forever. And they've had like some insane health scares in a sense where like the blood pressure went down super low or low. They had like really low glucose levels, and you know the child was like going into seizures, or like they had to then give him the shot. So crazy situations like that, you know. And then you have just, you know, adults who have been going through these situations and have been on their meds for so long that they don't want to go off their meds.
Right.
And again, stem cells is still coming into the picture. It's not like massively and widely available globally. A lot of people don't even know what stem cells is.
Right.
They just hear it, but they never would use it
Right.
as a treatment.
Yes.
And then for you now to say that stem cells could be replacing your pharmaceutical drugs that you've been taking for the last 10 years, that is mind-blowing and incredible. And also it gives people a lot of confidence
Yes.
that they don't need to be stuck in taking these pills for the rest of their lives or doing these shots.
Right.
Because let's face it, even you and I that take supplements every couple of months, some months you get tired of taking them, you know. There's the supplement fatigue.
Right.
And people don't want to constantly pop pills because they hate it.
Yes.
And they want to take a break from it. Maybe it's good also for the liver to not constantly popping pills. Sometimes some pills don't work. This is incredible news that you're telling me right now.
Yeah.
It's just so enlightening, and it gives people like a great understanding of what the future is going to be like.
Right.
So do you think this is going to be in the near future, 3 years maybe less, that we can actually have this treatment?
Yeah, so it depends on how hard we work. But yes, hopefully, yes, within a few years.
And is it just like one stem cell treatment, or do they need to go through like a series of stem cell treatments to be able to get off their meds?
This I'm not sure, because
What do
we
you
do
feel
need...
from what you're seeing now? Because right now you've been trying some on some current diabetes patients, right?
Right. But for me to decide, I don't have enough data to say that. For the type 1 diabetes patient, we need to do more research in order to have a conclusion.
You know how we love to freeze our eggs? And
Yes.
it's a topic that is like massively a thing in society.
Right.
You know, like you reach a certain age, you're like, oh my God, you know, I haven't met my life partner yet. I need to freeze my eggs. I don't know. Do I want to have kids? Do I not want to have kids? But I want to at least have the option when I do decide at some point, right?
Yes.
So there's you know, everybody knows about eggs freezing. But not a lot of people know about stem cells banking. So I want you to just explain a little bit of what stem cell banking is. How does that actually work? Does it help for the future? Because you now mentioned as well earlier that like the umbilical cord, and the younger that the stem cells are, doesn't necessarily mean that it could be the best version for you.
Right.
So is stem cells banking good, not good? Will it help? Please elaborate.
So there are different kinds of stem cell banking, as we all know, because different kinds of stem cell. I think the one quite popular is the one from umbilical cord, right? When the newborn baby was there, they just freeze that directly under minus 80 degrees. And then in case, you know, the baby has some kind of disease, they'll be able to use that, hopefully. But so the problem occurs here. The banking is easy, but many people don't know the purpose or when to use this banking, the stem cell. Okay. And then, as you say, it's not a very cheap process. That's why kind of people are hesitant to spend this kind of money for uncertain use in the future.
And do you currently work with people who do current stem cells banking for their own?
So yes, actually we were trying. I mean, we are in the process of preparing for the stem cell banking in our laboratory, and we can. But because of the reason I just mentioned to you, we're kind of in a dilemma whether we should proceed with the banking
because now that
process.
you found a new breakthrough,
Yes.
you're not really 100% sure anymore if stem cell banking even makes sense.
Yes, it's kind of like insurance, right?
Yeah.
you're paying for something like the risk in the future, which
Yeah.
you never know it would happen or not.
Yeah. Okay, so are you pro stem cell banking or are you on the fence and like against it primarily because of this new breakthrough that you discovered? It's just good to understand because maybe some people have already, done the stem cell banking and some people are kind of considering to do that option today. And like you said, it costs a lot of money.
Right.
Does it make sense?
I'm always honest, right? So
Yeah.
I give you honest opinion.
Yes, please.
If you're considering or you have done it, I support it because still this direct reprogramming technology is under the research level, right? We have to take a lot of time and effort to bring this into clinical practice, which takes years. That's why while we wait, why not bank your own stem cell and then prepare yourself if you have the money.
So you believe that people should still do the stem cell banking
Yes.
if they can at this
Yes.
stage,
Well,
but
yes.
and make sure that they're in a healthy space.
Yes.
Physically, biologically,
Yes.
everything inside
Yes.
must be healthy
Yes.
before they even try to consider stem cell banking, right?
Yes.
So what do you recommend someone who is interested in stem cell banking need to understand first and foremost? How do you prepare your body for that?
Yeah. So I think we talked about this. Reduce the chronic inflammation as much as possible. That's like
So-
taking anti-inflammatory food, like omega-3 or fibers, have a good gut health.
So, like, how many weeks before they decide to do stem cell banking, they need to make sure that they're in these protocol, taking your green juices, taking the right kind of supplements, exercise.
Yeah. And sleep well,
Sleep
of
well,
course.
yeah.
I would say 2-3 weeks
Okay.
to set your body
Yeah.
reset. And I want to especially emphasize on the Western people, moderate exercise. Because I understand, because I'm Asian, and the Western people tend to do extreme exercise, like lifting very, very heavy weight every day without letting your body recover. Because these actually could lead to inflammation, as you know, and it can produce a lot of oxidative stress, which can lead to cellular aging.
Yeah, it's true. But also undereating also causes stress in the body.
Yes.
So a lot of people mistake overtraining and undereating
Yes.
as good for you. But they
Yes.
don't realize that by overeating and undertraining, it puts your body into a lot of stress too. And because of that, you're not able to help your body recover regardless if you think that you're doing things the right way.
Exactly.
Right? So that's another misconception that people have automatically.
Yes.
And our body is in an always state of stress, right? We are in the sympathetic or parasympathetic, but for the most part, we're still living in stress. At all states, we have the acute and then we have the more severe.
Yes.
And then people don't understand that. So it's the daily life of the stressors that we're taking, from mental stressors to
Yes.
how we're not consuming food to lifestyle.
Yes.
Another point that I wanted to just kind of like bring up and talk about is that what I see the future will be, and I like to think about what life is going to be in the next 5 years or 10 years. And with the advances of technology and AI and what we're doing today in the stem cell space and all these incredible breakthroughs that you've been telling me, I really, really, truly believe and I'm confident that in the future, stem cells will help us regenerate so much more than just tissues. And I really believe it will also help us heal from many different types of major chronic conditions. From what you're seeing today in your own clinical practice and within your lab and scientists, what do you think is going to be the first major condition that can be healed by something like stem cells?
I would have to say probably osteoarthritis.
Okay.
Yeah. There are a number of reasons. First of all, because there are a big population who suffer from osteoarthritis. Most aged people have knee pain when they're walking, right?
Yeah.
In the world. Second reason is because it's a very clear treatment effect. Patient feel better, less pain, their quality of life improve because they can walk faster, they can do whatever they want, and it can be proven by MRI imaging or blood test to check the anti-inflammation. So because of these three reasons, I think it could be one of the first to become
Like
standard treatment.
Yeah, like the gold standard of
Yes.
treatment. Do you think it could be completely eradicated in terms of people will no longer be having osteoarthritis? It can be like you just take the stem cells and go through this protocol and this treatment, and you could just leave the clinic and feel better right away.
Yes, I think in the long future,
Yeah.
when the technology advances enough, we can replace having a surgery with the stem cell treatment.
This is just phenomenal.
Yes,
I love where the future is going. I love what we're doing in this space today.
right.
So if I gave you a magic wand today, and you could use that magic wand to make a difference in policy change globally in the way that people are ethically using stem cells, how would you do it?
Probably one way is to make the regulation for regenerative medicine standard and consistent for all over the world. That's one thing. So that people be treated equally wherever you go.
Yeah, and right now it's not like that.
Right. And we definitely need more detailed protocol, like I explained earlier. For somebody who is interested in doing stem cell, first check your inflammation level and then get that treated first so yourself is prepared for the treatment. Things like this, nobody tell you. It's not written anywhere. You know, I discovered this through 7 years of experience by myself.
Yeah, you're right. They don't talk about it.
Right.
I've never heard anyone say that, how important it is to prepare your body before you even go for a stem cells treatment.
Yes. So I think these small steps are very crucial for better outcome for the treatment, safer protocol for the patient, and the clinicians.
If you could speak to your younger self today and everything that you know about regenerative medicine today, what would you have told yourself that you wish you had known back then?
Oh, that's a very good question, huh? I think because I'm a clinician, I'm a doctor, and obviously my brain and my hands are very important to work. And as many of you, I always want to stay active, active thinker and active social-wise. So I think if I could go back and do some kind of treatment to, treat my brain cells so that it stays active and young, that's something I would probably choose to do.
Yeah, but a lot of doctors are just known to be unhealthy.
Right.
Right? They
That's very
take
true.
care more of their patients than they
Yes.
actually care about themselves.
Yeah,
And
we're
we see-
lazy about concerning ourselves.
Yeah.
One good example is when doctors are sick, we cannot get our work off, right?
Yeah.
It's not an
exactly. I
excuse
know.
for a doctor.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
But I respect the doctors who really prioritize their health. And I see so many of them that biohack, do all the type of treatments that they need to do to take care of themselves.
Yes.
But I see also on the flip side of that, the sad part of it, a lot of doctors who do not.
Right.
So one hot topic that's going on around right now is the Grey Anatomy's actor. I don't know if you've watched Grey's Anatomy,
Long
the series.
time ago, yes.
Yeah, it's Eric Dane, and he just spoke openly about ALS, and that now one of his arms is just like not operating anymore, and he starts feeling it now on his other arm too. And it's sad, right? Because we don't have a treatment for ALS at the moment.
Yes.
And it's just good to know what your thoughts are on that, and if stem cells at some stage can help with ALS.
So yes, I actually have a sad story to share with you. We actually received some ALS patients at my clinic who were wishing to receive stem cell treatment and have some kind of improvement. So exactly like this doctor, this patient from Australia came to my clinic. And the first time I saw him, he couldn't move his right arm. But other than that, he was okay. He can walk, he can speak, anything else is perfect. But the symptom went very, very fast for his case. And quickly after that, he couldn't move both of his hand, and then it got to his legs, so he couldn't walk anymore. And then it also came to his speech. And within the 6 months of first time I saw him, he unfortunately passed away, despite the fact that we tried to, treat him with stem cell. So yeah, like I said, that's a very, very sad story that I couldn't help him. And
Do you think stem cells work or doesn't work? Are there enough studies on stem cells when it comes to ALS, or not enough yet?
I think not enough yet.
So that was just one instance where at least you tried it and you know that
Yes.
it actually, maybe his stage was too advanced.
From what I understood, ALS progress depends heavily on the individual. Some progress very slowly.
True.
Some progress very fast.
Yeah.
And I told him this from right away before we decided to do the treatment, that we may not be able to help at all. But he and his family were willing to take the chance. So that's how we started. And although stem cell therapy can be helpful for other, neurological diseases such as Parkinson, and I think ALS is just the fact that it's progressing very fast for most cases. It's the timing race. It's just not, stem cell is not fast enough to help these people, unfortunately.
That's true. But I really do hope that stem cells at some point can help conditions like that are basically right now we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, so in order to help this kind of patient, my personal feeling is that we need to somehow enhance the efficacy of the stem cell so that it can act faster.
Yeah, you enhance the efficacy of the stem cells to enhance faster. Yeah. I think one of the biggest disservice we can do for anything that is evolving like stem cells is not understanding the risks and the mistakes.
Right.
And today we have talked about so many important factors that people in general have overlooked. And overlooked in a sense that they've tried stem cells and they've developed complications and also life-threatening complications. But I really hope that every single person that listens to this is able to create that awareness for themselves, but also to spread the word rapidly to every single person that they know, because understanding the risks can also help save your life.
Exactly.
And also help you to know whether this is the right treatment for you. Because at the end of the day, doctors will only give you advice. They will not force you to do. It is still your own responsibility whether you want to do something. And it's not your job to blame a doctor or a specialist when it was your sole decision to do a certain treatment, We have our own agency on our life. We have given the freedom to choose between right and wrong, to choose the doctors and the treatments we want to do. It's one thing when we want to blame our specialists or doctors because they gave us something that made us sick or unhealthy, but it's another thing when you chose that. So that's why this conversation today was important to have, because there's always two sides. We protect the doctors, but we also protect the patients, and we want to be able to play in fair ground, where each person gets an opportunity to choose the kind of doctor, choose the right kind of specialist, choose the right kind of treatments, but also understand that they're going in there with confidence to know that they understand the risks. Is there one breakthrough in the advancements of technology that people are not widely known about in the world today that is happening in Japan that you want to talk about?
There are different kind of stem cell. And in Japan, we're only allowed to do autologous stem cell, which means we need to harvest patient own tissue to make stem cell. But in other countries like Thailand or Malaysia, Ukraine, or Dubai even, they're allowed to do allogenic stem cell, which is a stem cell derived from other people.
Yes, this is facts. I've heard that.
Right? So there is a huge debate on whether it's safe to receive allogenic stem cell or not. Some doctors believe that it is better because it's younger, as I told you earlier, and it works better. Whereas other doctors are strongly against it because it could cause you like unknown disease, like infectious disease or unknown diseases, because you're basically putting cells that's not yours.
So could it also develop into a tumor at a later stage, if ever? Because I've heard some cases like that about a tumor growth and it progressing based on stem cells used that isn't yours.
I think, as far as I understand, it's not a tumor formation unless you use iPS or ES cells, but normal mesenchymal stem cell, I don't think forms tumor, or the possibility is like almost close to zero. So I had one visitor, she's a doctor from China. And apparently one part of China is allowed to do allogenic stem cell from the umbilical cord. And she told me that the patient who received umbilical cord-derived stem cell formed a cyst. And the cyst was even getting bigger after the treatments. Because the umbilical cord-derived stem cell, as we know, is very active, it's very young. It can form, different kind of cells. That's why when you have a cyst in your body, it can, become bigger. So that's the first time I heard about.
That's crazy.
Yes, as a side effect of having a allogenic stem cell treatment.
So in your clinic, you don't do that at all?
No,
in all of Japan,
we're not allowed.
You're not allowed to.
Right.
Okay, so there's strict regulations on that.
Yes.
And you would always prescribe people to only do that particular stem cell and not the other.
Yeah, we cannot do it in Japan.
Dr. Midori, thank you so much for your time. That was such a insightful conversation, and I believe this episode should be shared with everybody globally, because stem cells is such a trending topic, but busting the myths behind what the truth and the facts is based on clinical trials and studies is what people should go for, opposed to just following trends. And I say this about everything all the time, because trends is one thing, but focusing on the real science and real data is the other.
Right.
And that's what people should go for instead of just the hype.
Right.
I look forward to visiting your clinic and experiencing some of your treatments at some stage. Thank you for taking the time to come here today.
Yeah, thank you, Mary.